Welcome. I'm Justin Silverman of the New England First Amendment Coalition. Thank you all for joining us for this month's 30-minute skills lesson on Microsoft Excel. This is the first of 2 introductory classes on Excel. You can register for all classes and view the recordings of those that you missed at nefac.org/30-minute skills. We have a lot to cover, not a lot of time, so let's begin. Your instructor today is Jenifer McKim, Deputy Investigative Editor with the GBH News Center for Investigative Reporting in Boston. Jenifer, thanks for being here. All yours.
Thank you, Justin, for having me, and thanks all of you for taking a little time to up your data skills. As journalists, it's so important in this time to be able to do some just basic data and math with the work, and it can really up your game. I wanted to say that you could either be, we're going to be working on Excel today, but you could easily use Google Sheets also. And of course, this is sort of the very beginning, and there's a whole world of data skills. You can decide that this is something you're very passionate about and go from Excel to Python and R and learning all these skills. But I've heard over and over again from data journalists that you can do 90% of what you want to do in data journalism simply using Excel or Google Sheets. So this is a great place to start. I'm really going to begin from the very beginning. And so you might learn a few things. You might know some things, but learn some other things. It's a short, quick half hour. I'm going to start with a basic spreadsheet. The thing is, again, Excel and Google Sheets are very similar. So Justin also put this in the chat, so hopefully you can work along with me to do some of these basic math skills. But just for the very beginning, I know a lot of you understand this stuff, but to think about, this is what they call a workbook in Excel, and a workbook will have many sheets. If you look down below, if you look down below, you see the Twin Brewers, MLB Payroll. These are all sheets. You can click on any of them to get a new sheet. And you see this little plus sign here down at the bottom. You can create more of them. And if you want to name it, you just double click on it and you put your own name to your sheet. So that's a first way to understand that you have lots of ways to start. So I just wanted to start with a basic empty sheet and look at some of the things you can see up here at the top. This is the, will tell you what cell you're in. Of course, there are the alphabetical letters up top, the numbers down below. It's a little like Battleship, the game, if you ever played that as a kid. And you can see that whenever I click on one of these cells, it'll show it up here. This is here to the FX. This is the formula bar. It will tell us about doing some basic math, which we'll be doing in this class. Another just sort of basic thing is about the cursor. If you look here, when I have my cursor in the cell, there's different things that it can show. So for example, when it looks, if you see, see just a regular cross there, that can mean that if you double click, you can highlight an entire piece. So that's one thing you can do with your cursor. Another is, in mine, it has a little hand. Some other times it'll be a little dark cursor, and that means you can move it from one place to the other. And the last one, which is really one of the ones we're going to most work with in this class, is if you take your cursor to the little corner, you can drag it down, or you can drag it to the right. And that is really a very helpful cursor for the work we're going to do. So that's just basic things in Excel. Now I'm going to go to the worksheet, MLB Payrolls, which is Major League Baseball. Some data that has been collected by Mary Jo Webster over the years, and she uses to do some of this work. Again, I want to show you some basic skills about sort of maintenance of a spreadsheet. One of the things you'll always hear if you go to IRE or talk to data journalists is about having tidy data. So in this case, you want to make sure that there's not there's not blank columns or rows. One of the things that you can do is sort of neaten your columns. I can take my cursor and go right up here to the top, and I can move it like this. And if I want it to fit exactly right, I can double click and it'll make that happen. If you want to move them all, you go to this left one here and you see that you've highlighted the entire field, and then I can do it and it'll all be even. Or again, double click and it'll do it that way. You can also do it when you're going down that way, but it's just a way of kind of keeping your stuff neat at the time. Let's see, I want to clean this up again. Okay, so so we can see it. Another thing that I really always like to do when I'm looking at data is to do a freeze of the top. This is my header row. You want to make sure that your header row, which is the top row here, the one that says team and payroll, first of all, that it has something in each that they're populated for when you do calculations. And also if you want to see, if I look at it right now, I've already done this, so I'll, but if I unfreeze, so I'm going to unfreeze my panes and you'll see that it disappears, and that's not very helpful. But I want to freeze the pane so I can see that my header row is there. So I go to view and freeze panes, top row, freeze first column, and then you can see there's that. So it's much easier when you do your data analysis. All right, so I want to do some basic math. Boy, this day is going to go very quickly. So actually, I want to freeze top row. There we go. So first thing I want to do is some basic math looking at total sum. I'm just curious. Oh, actually, before we do basic math, one other thing is sorting and filtering, which are ways that you can analyze when you have bigger pieces of data than this. So the first thing is sorting. If you think, let's see, this is pretty easy, but sometimes if you have a lot of data and you want to look at one thing, I'll click sort up here. And I will sort by team. It's already sorted by team here, but let's say I want to figure out who makes the most money of all these teams. So I'll go to the column and I'll change it to 2016. I want to know who makes the most money. I'll see that my list has headers. We're journalists, so we always like to know largest to smallest. I'll click OK, and I'll see, oh, unsurprising, the New York Yankees has earns the most money on its payroll. Now, if I want to go back and change that, another kind of new cool thing about sorting, actually, I'll show you is, or we'll go to filtering then next. So I'm going to bring this back. I'm going to bring it back to team and A to Z, and we'll be back to the Arizona Diamondbacks. But so sorting is another fun way to look at things. So I'm going to click on, no, I'm sorry, filter now. So now filter is another way, and I've had people kind of wonder where things go, but it's a way of looking at smaller amounts of your data. So I clicked on filter, and you'll see here that there's these little diamonds up here that are basically our tool to look at our data. So if I want to filter and all I really want to know is about the Boston Red Sox, because really that's all I care about, I click on select all, Boston Red Sox, and suddenly all I have is the Boston Red Sox here. And you know that you filtered. I've had sort of interns go, where's the data? And you can see because there is that little diamond and it has a little mark there, which means that this column is filtered, and you can see that the colors are different here. So that is one way to use filtering if you're, and I just clicked on that button again to see all my data. I want to do another filter. I'm just curious about who makes the most amount of money. So I click back on filter. You can see the little diamonds there. I'm going to click on payroll 2016. And there's different things that you can do. I can click a way of, I clicked on this filter here and I can find the top 10, the below average, you could do greater than. So I'm going to look at the top 10 payrolls in the MLB in 2016. and you'll see that they're here. And if you wanted, of course, to sort them, you could sort them also and see that, again, the New York Yankees, but these are the top salaries of the Dodgers is the second one. So that's sort of interesting, just fun when you get a bunch of data that you can play with by fooling with the filtering and the sorting. So now I'd like to just do some basic math. I mean, that's what's so amazing. I have to say I was an English major. Math was not my specialty, but I have been able to do work in Excel and as a business reporter at the Boston Globe for a bunch of time, it has been very helpful. So right now, I just want to do a basic sum of payrolls of all the teams in 2000. Let's start with 2002. So I put a break here between the teams and the total, and then I'm going to start my first math. So when you do math in Excel, you've got to basically tell the computer that you want to do some math. So it starts with an equal sign. So I'm clicking equal, and then I'm going to say sum, which is basically I'm telling the computer that I want it to add up the columns that I want. So I put the equal sign, the sum, and then I'm going to do a parentheses, and I'm going to want to start from B2, which is that first one. And I clicked on it, and there it is. It just showed up. You could write it in also. And because I wanted to add up all of them, I could do B2 plus B3, but that would take too long, and why bother? So instead, I'm going to do B2 to B31, and I'm going to close it. And suddenly it's going to done the total for all those things. Now, I could also go back here and do this for C2 and to C31. But what's really cool is I showed you that neat little cursor here that you put the little black one on the end there, and you can drag it along, and it'll do this. It will basically change this, and you can look in your formula bar here. It says B2 to B31. Excel knows that now that you dragged it, this time you want to do C2 to C31. So it went all the way along, and you were able to do the total. So that's pretty nice, just easy math. Now I want to do median also. And if you were in a class that I was teaching, I'd ask you the difference if you know between median and average. But a lot of folks feel like a median is a better way to understand was a sort of that halfway point in math where you're basically going from the top to the bottom, finding the most middle one rather than adding them up and you have some crazy outlier that's changing everything. So I'm going to do median now of what is the median for these teams. So I'm going to go equal, and it's the same. The great thing is once you learn one thing, they start to become easy. So median, and then I'm going to go B2 to B31 and 31. And you can see there that it's actually, it's got it highlighted. So I can also kind of check that I'm doing the right thing, because you can always make mistakes. So now look at the median is 61, what is that, $1 million. So I'm going to drag that down and see what the median is for all the years. And I'm going to do one more average, and we can kind of see what the difference is. We have a little time here. So average, same thing. I'm going to put equals average. You guys know how to do this now. If you're doing it along with me, that's really awesome. B2 to B31. And I'm going to drag it this way. And you'll see that in some cases, the median is a little different than the average. And as a housing reporter at the Globe, housing reporters generally like medians because they like that. So here we are, got some good data. We figured out the total, the sum. When you're a journalist, a lot of times you're sort of trying to think of like, what's the story I'm going to tell? You know, what are the numbers? If you get this data really quickly, how am I going to tell a story and impress my editors that I can do it in a few minutes? So one of the things that is a quick story that you would do in a business section or whatever is like percent change between one year and the next. Right here we have 26 to 2011 team. So to 2011 to 2016. So we'll do that, and we'll say to ourselves, like, I wonder what is the percent change between these. So I'm going to fill in my column, because you really always want to make sure that you're telling your future you what you're doing. So when you go back, so I'm going to say percent change 2011 to 2016. And if any of you folks remember math, which I didn't, and I still have to remind myself, to be honest. And actually, I left you, Justin is going to provide you cheat sheets so that if you don't remember this the next time, but IRE has a neat little way to remember this. So basically, percent change is new minus old over old. That is the math. And the joke among geeky data folks is, if you want to remember one thing about, when you hear about math, you go, no, and that's why you would remember new minus old over old is the math. So I'm going to do the old equal sign, because it's going to tell my computer what I want to do next. And then because I'm doing two different calculations, I want to tell it, put the first part in parentheses. So I'm going to do I2 minus H2 parentheses over new minus old over old. And then I'm going to do H2 again. I'm going to click the thing. And then, so another neat thing, by the way, about this, this little guy, you can drag it, but another thing you can do is just double click it and it'll go down. I love that. It's very quick. The only thing you want to worry about is if you have a blank, it will stop. So that's why dragging can be helpful. But if you have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of rows, you might want to do it this way. And then, of course, you want to check that you want to turn it into a percentage. So if you click up here, you go to format cells. The other neat thing about spreadsheets is there's 3 different ways to do everything. Of course, you could also go to the home and click on the percentage, but I'm going to click on format cells, percentages. Nobody really likes zeros with percentages. And there we have it. So this is the percent change for all of our freeze. I'm going to unfreeze claims, put it here, freeze panes, that should have, okay. So, and if we wanted to sort, we could click again. Now we want to say which had the biggest percent change. So I'm going to go back to data. I'm going to go to sort, and I'm going to see, now it has my new one. I'm going to say percent change, largest to smallest, and I'll see who got the biggest payroll increase, and the Kansas City Royals over that time has done the most. So that's kind of interesting. That's another, like, there's the people who make the most money, but then there's also the people who are adding, boosting up their things the most. So that is one interesting other thing we can do. Another interesting or type of math that you could do is percent of whole. So basically, I wonder of all the team, of all the money that's going into Major League Baseball, who is getting the biggest amount of the pie. So I'd put up another column here, percent of whole. And that math would be basically, I want to do equal sign, and I'm going to look at and if you were here in a classroom, I'd be asking you to help me think about this math. But anyway, so I would do I2, and I would divide it by the total, which is down here, which is this little guy here. So that would be I, and I can click on it and see where I can see that it's I33. So I'm gonna go back here, I33, and it happens. So let's see what happens when I do that. I'm like, oh, okay, that's interesting. I'm gonna change the format again. So it's a percent, format cells, percentage. And that's neat, 3%. It's percent of whole. But when I click down there, something bad happens. Why is that? I'm a little confused. But the thing is, it's going to do what it's always told to do, because it's a computer. It doesn't, it doesn't have a big brain. And it's basically changing. It's expecting that you're going keeping on going down. But at this point, we want to anchor the total. We want them to stick with that total. So there is another little trick with Excel where I'd put and there's no real reason why this is, but there is a money sign. If you put a money sign there, it'll basically be telling your computer that you want to stay with the total with that I-33. And let's try again. And now I'll go back to here, my little cursor down at the bottom, and it'll do it this way, and it'll show, and maybe I want to know who has the biggest percent of the whole. So I'm going to go back to sort by percent of whole, largest to smallest, because that's what I care about. And New York Yankees again are taking the most. They're always getting the most. The Red Sox, 5%. So that's the basic math skills that I was hoping to provide today.
Jenifer, one question here before we wrap up. Can you go over the anchor sign? Do you put it, where exactly do you put it in the formula?
Oh, okay. Yeah, so basically the way it would be, shall I show it again? So the anchor sign is this, we're going to look here at the formula bar, which is kind of hard to see, but it doesn't seem to get any bigger, but I have it there. So basically it's I2, and then underneath it is before the alphabet letter and before the column and before the row. So basically before each of those, and then it'll keep it there. So so basically, hopefully you can see that, but basically, and it's a money sign. There's no real reason. It's what data scientists told the Excel masters to do. But that is one of those little tricks that you learn along the way. And there's so many. Actually, Mary Jo has this whole real Excel magic, all these different ways that you can fix your spreadsheets. But the biggest piece of advice I have for you, if folks are here and they're new to Excel, is to just start using it with everything. I actually do all my note taking in Excel. So I have a column which has all the information about who I'm talking to, and I have the date, and I put all my information in a little cell block, but I do my own finances through Excel. But basically all the things about using technology is that you can't just use it once and then hope you're going to do it when you get a big data set. It's really trying to make it part of your life so that you feel comfortable when it's time to use it in your journalism.
Thanks, Jenifer. Great suggestion. Never knew that you could use Excel for note taking.
Yeah, I'd actually show you my thing, but I feel like that would, but I was taught that like 15 years ago by an LA Times reporter, and I've never stopped. And it's been a great way to organize. So you always know, who you're talking to, and you have that information there for years, the date you spoke to the person, et cetera. And you can sort by their name or the topic. It's very helpful.
Right. So in addition to Mary Jo's resources, if anyone wants to get in touch with you, Jenifer, what's the best way to do so?
For sure. So I'm at WGBH, Jenifer, JENIFER 1N1F _ McKim at WGBH.org. We are an educational foundation and love to help out in any way possible. I also worked for many years at BU. So if anybody has any questions or wants to get back to me, as well as IRE.org, again, I'm a huge fan, and they have a lot of great folks for helping out. But yes, anyone can reach out to me. That would be great.
Great. Well, thank you, Jenifer. Appreciate the time, and look forward to your next lesson next month. I want to thank everybody who joined us today for, again, this is the first of 2 introductory lessons on Microsoft Excel. If you found today's lesson helpful in any way, please consider supporting this program with a donation at nefac.org, or tell others about the many resources that we provide. So Jenifer, everyone who joined us, thank you all again, and we'll see you next month for our next 30-minute skills.